Welcome to another episode of Times Union Live. We're very happy to be joined by Jack Knowlton, the operating manager, which I've been corrected, that's his title, not the managing partner, it's the operating manager of Sackatoga Stable, which owns the popular Tiz the Law, who's going to run in the Belmont Stakes this Saturday. The Belmont Stakes draw was just completed a little bit ago, and Tiz the Law, as expected, was made the heavy favorite at 6-5 on the morning line, and I think he'll go off much lower than that myself. And he also drew the 8-post in the 10-horse field. And Jack, first of all, welcome and thank you for coming on board with us. And how are you today?
I'm great. Even better after seeing the draw where we got the 8-post. Very pleased with that. And that happened after spending about 2 hours with the NBC News crew that came up and did some additional shooting for the Belmont NBC TV show.
Okay, Jack, now Tiz the Law is 6-5. We all knew he was going to be the favorite. And again, he will probably go off lower than that. I mean, this is I believe he's the only Grade 1 winner in the race. And is there more pressure now as we start on his journey in the Triple Crown, knowing this is a race everyone expects that he's going to win? Do you feel the pressure at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there is. He's been on everybody's radar screen as one of the top 3-year-olds this year, and with the defections of two of Bob Baffert's horses, Maxfield. He really, other than Honor AP and, maybe, another horse or two that Baffert will come up with, at least at this point, seems to be at the top of the class. So everybody's going to say, if he doesn't win, well, you really don't belong at the top of the class, and I'm sure that he would drop down. But, he's on his home track. He's won a Grade 1 in there. He trains there. He walks a couple hundred yards over into, the paddock from his barn. And, as long as, nothing extreme happens, I think he's got a great shot, and I do expect him to win.
Your thoughts then on the draw? I know Barkley had said, he told me, and he told everybody that he would hope for 5, 6, or 7. You got 8. Is that okay?
That's fine. I just talked to him before we came on, and he'll take that. What we didn't want to be was down inside. And, the way this horse, likes to make his run on the outside, that certainly has been successful in all 4 of his wins. I think this gives Manny the setup where you can put him, in a place to do that.
Yeah, by saying that, you said that he doesn't like that being down inside. Is the farther out the better then?
Well, not too far. I mean, this gives, Manny an opportunity. And this is a, strange configuration for 1 1/8. It's probably the only place in the country where, it's a 1-turn 1 1/8. So, in this configuration, I don't think that, even a 9 or 10 post would have been terrible. I certainly would have preferred it to the 1 or the 2. But, in a regular configuration of a 1 1/8 race, where you're going around, turn pretty quickly, that would be a disadvantage. So I think, looking at it that way, you would much rather be, going around into the first turn of the race pretty quickly, somewhere in the 4, 5, 6 is probably as far out as you'd want to be ideally.
This isn't your first rodeo in the Triple Crown. Everyone remembers 2003, the ride that Funny Side took you on. And you guys, the Sackatoga crew, which is a lot different then than it is now, but you guys became like cult heroes in the sport during that Triple Crown run. What's it like being back on this national stage?
Well, it's obviously a lot of fun. Not anything that ever expected. I figure lightning striking once is about all anybody can expect. But fortunately, Barkley and Robin Smullen, his assistant, were able to find Tiz the Law and the New York bred sale in Saratoga for the, cost of $110,000. We've got, a tremendous horse, and one that we hope will take us a long way. But you're right. I mean, it's totally different. We have 35 people that are partners in this horse. It makes for a bigger party, and which is a little scary when you look the way we partied back in 2003.
Yeah, that was a party that seemed like it never ended, I think. But now, to address the elephant in the room, you are going to be not at Belmont Park because they made the announcement the other day that owners are not being allowed inside Mammoth Belmont Park. Your thoughts on that you will have to, I mean, and I know you're going to spend the day watching the race up in Saratoga at Pinnell's Restaurant with a bunch of your partners, which I'm sure you'll have a fun time with that too, but it's not like being there, is it?
No, I mean, it's a big disappointment, and, quite honestly, very difficult to understand the thinking that went into that. Anybody who's been to Belmont realizes how big that facility is. And I think the capability to safely distance, get people in and out, certainly is doable. But, the decision has been made that despite NYRA's efforts, and they did make good faith efforts to get owners in, but the state, for whatever reason, wasn't ready to give the okay. So we will, watch it Pinnell's, and hopefully we can have a celebration in Saratoga that evening.
And then, that's in this game, 10 seconds after the Belmont's run, if everything goes well for you, the first question that always comes of what's next. And I know that the Travers at Saratoga is a goal that you have in mind, even though we don't know when it's going to be, even though it'll probably be in early August. That would be your next destination, correct?
Absolutely. What we've heard, although it still hasn't been confirmed, the most likely date would be August 8th, which would give 4 weeks going into the Derby. The other possible date might be the 1st of August, which would give you 5 weeks. So that would be good spacing from, the Belmont to, the race in Saratoga and then on to Kentucky. So definitely that's, one of the few regrets I had with Funny Side was that he got sick and we didn't get a chance to run in the Travers.
Having this horse, do you feel that there's the fandom, if you will, of people that are really getting behind this horse, kind of like they did with Funny Side?
Well, I'm not sure that you're ever going to be able to have the, popularity that Funny Side had. It was a time when people were really looking for heroes and supporting underdogs. And, the story of 5 guys from high school putting $5,000 a piece in and getting, a horse, that rang, with people. They thought that was pretty neat. And then just happened to be cheap and rented a school bus instead of finding some other way to get to Churchill Downs. And so that was unique. And but this horse is popular. And I get, a lot of emails. He's got his own website and, on social media, which there was no social media back in the days of Funny Side. He is all over social media, and there are a lot of people that are following him. And every time something pops up, there's a lot of people that are really very into to Tiz. So, I think he is a very popular horse, and everybody remembers Sackatoga and Funny Side. So it's, some of that is really a holdover. And just about any time that I'm doing interviews, part of the interview is Tiz the Law, but people also want to go back and talk about Funny Side.
And you never fail to want to talk about Funny Side.
That will never get old.
When you're talking about the Travers and Saratoga, now you haven't seen your horse since the Holy Bull, correct?
I saw him while we could still see him in training for a few weeks before, the Florida Derby. They shut things down. probably 2, maybe 3 weeks before the Florida Derby. So I saw him work up in Palm Meadows probably at least 2 or 3 times after the Holy Bull. But, then I haven't seen him probably since sometime in early March.
So the fact that you weren't able to watch him in the Florida Derby, and it must have been kind of gut wrenching because you're only a mile away at your condo down there in Florida. But the fact now you're going to be 200 miles away for the Belmont, and I guess you just have to cross your fingers hoping that you're able to see him at Saratoga.
Absolutely. I mean, the good thing about, not being there is that I can celebrate, hopefully, watch the race with a group of our partners where, we were isolated as my wife and I, one of our partners, Margaret Phillips, and my grandson, Jordan, we were by ourselves in the condo. Here, at least, we will have a group of us that are, owners of the horse and be able to, have the camaraderie that Sackatoga is famous for.
Jack, if we look at the Belmont field quickly, there's not a horse in here that I would think that you would be afraid of.
Well, I mean, I think, 2 horses with totally different styles, in my mind, are the 2 of, most concern. One is Mark Cassie's horse, who ran a big race going a mile and 16th, got a pretty big speed figure the other day. So that, and he drew the 1 hole. We knew he was going to be going anyway. So that's not a surprise. And the other horse that has, some pretty good numbers, but a totally different running style is Solo Volante. And, he's a horse that probably, in a race like the Travers or the Derby is going to be more formidable maybe than, a 1-turn mile and 1/8. But he's got a closing kick. And you look at, the speed figures and other numbers, he's probably got the second best to Tiz the Law. So those are the 2 that I would be most concerned about. But as you know, as well as I do, it's a horse race. And at any point, one of these horses can, change and make a big improvement over the last race or any race that they've ever run.
I was talking to your jockey, Manny Franco, yesterday, and I asked him how he envisioned the race. And he thinks he'll be in the second flight, tracking the early speed. And you would think it'll just, I don't know if anyone will go with Tap It to Win, because that might be suicidal. And Manny expects that he'll make his move around the turn coming into the stretch. Is that what you see too?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, getting the 8 post, I think, gives Manny the perfect opportunity to see what's going on and put himself where he wants to be. As we know, Tiz has got great tactical speed. He's shot out of the gate in both of those races in Florida, and Manny, had the opportunity, particularly in the Florida Derby, to put him in the stalking position that he really wanted. And it didn't really matter that he was, 3 wide, 4 wide, going around the first and second turn. He was confident that he had plenty of horse. And, once he made that move going around the 3rd and 4th turn at the Florida Derby, it was over. And he just, blew right on by. Hopefully that's the same thing we're going to see.
I've asked you this, I asked Manny this, I've asked Barkley this, and they all have the same answer, that when I asked you, really saying you haven't really had to get to the bottom of this horse yet, which I guess from all your standpoints would be, that's a really good thing.
Well, it is. I mean, if you look at his 4 wins, I think probably the least number of lengths is, 3 1/4 or 3 1/2. Most of them have been 4, 4 1/2. And he hasn't seen the stick. I mean, Manny hasn't had to get after him at all. I mean, he pretty much does what he does on his own. He sees the target, he goes. A couple of times, Manny, just because he was drifting in a little bit or something, he'd, give him a couple of little cracks, but not to make him run faster, not to get the best out of him. So that, is something that, we kind of have in our hip pocket that he never really has been asked. And I think the other thing, when you look at the way he gallops out of his works, out of his races, I mean, additional distance as we go forward, we're not concerned. If Barkley had had his way, he'd have had this race a mile and a half.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's already shown he can win off a layoff. He's won off an 8-week layoff. He's won off a 9-week layoff. Now you're going to ask him to win off an 11-week layoff. Is there any concern there with you? Or because he's already done it, you're not concerned?
No, Barkley knows how to push all the right buttons. And, the fact that he had the only issue really that we've had with him, he had a little hoof issue when he threw a shoe, between two of the races, and he missed a little bit of time, not much. But, he's just been perfect since then. And, Barkley works him, a little fast, and then he'll back off, as you saw the last two works here at Belmont. I mean, the first one a couple of weeks ago, he, put in a real strong work and with a fast time. And then for this one, Barkley didn't want too much. And, so we went in 50 and change, and that was all we needed, just a maintenance work.
Now, if this was a normal year, which obviously it is not, the Triple Crown would be over for, I think, 3 weeks by, coming up this Saturday. It would have been over already, and we'd be getting ready for Saratoga. But now, because of the coronavirus, the whole sport has been turned upside down, just like every sport has been turned upside down. And, you run the Belmont this Saturday, and then you wait until September to run in the Kentucky Derby. Is there a concern there that if you're going to have the same horse in September that you will have now? Because after the Florida Derby, it looked like he was primed to run the race of his life in the Kentucky Derby if it would have been May 2nd. Is there any concern that the horse won't be the same in September?
I don't think so. And really, primary reason, Barkley and I didn't plan to have a busy campaign for him prior to the Derby. We felt that this horse was going to be a horse that would be good enough to get the points that he needed in the Florida Derby. So we only ran him twice, and we really did put all our eggs in that Florida Derby basket in terms of getting points under normal circumstances. I mean, had he not, been successful running first or second in that race, we really didn't have any other plan to back up that. But, again, he's only had 2 races. If, we go to 3 races here, if we do the Travers, that's 4. It's only 4 races going into September. And usually, the Triple Crown, 3 races in 5 weeks. It's a lot tougher. So, I think, as we've seen, there have been a lot of horses that have already fallen by the wayside with the extended time frame getting into the first leg of the Triple Crown. Hopefully everybody that's standing now will still be standing, and there'll probably be some new ones that we don't even know about going into the Derby. So I think that's the biggest question, really. Is there going to be another horse that Bob Baffert is going to pull out of his hat when he lost his 2 biggest horses to be a Derby threat going into the fall?
When Tiz the Law broke his maiden in Saratoga, he didn't catch you by surprise, did he?
No, I mean, he'd worked real well. We, had seen him in the morning. He'd go out at 6 o'clock and he'd work. And not only did he work fast, but he galloped out, and they, had a hard time pulling him out before he even got midway through the backside. So we felt real good about him. I think that, we were, surprised that he won as easily as he did and ran as fast as he did. I mean, he ended up getting the, highest speed figure of any 2-year-old that ran at Saratoga last summer.
What do you think this horse has meant to this area? I mean, it's not often that you have a local horse that's going to make a big splash in the Triple Crown. And here up in Saratoga Springs, you've done it twice, hopefully twice.
Well, I think people are just beginning to realize, who he is and what his potential is. If he can win this race, I think then it really begins to, explode. And if we can run into Travers. Unfortunately, we're not going to have 50,000 people there to see it. Hopefully we'll have, at least 5 or 10, but that's to be determined. But I think that's, going to become a big story. And anybody who tunes in tomorrow and on Saturday in the, telecast, and there's going to be a 3-hour telecast for the Belmont. And an awful lot of that telecast is going to be about Tiz the Law, because he is the story. And hopefully he will not disappoint. And I think, then we move on, and we've got, several weeks to Saratoga, and he'll still be the story.
Are you bummed out at all, Jack, about the Triple Crown being so different this year? I mean, the Belmont is 1.5 miles, usually the end of the Triple Crown. It's a 1.8 miles this year, and it's starting the Triple Crown. Then the Derby, September, the Preakness in October. Are you bummed out that it's not the traditional way? Because people are already talking about, if a horse wins all 3, there's going to have to be an asterisk.
I'll take the asterisk. I mean, as long as he keeps winning those races, I'm okay with it. Obviously, it's not what anybody wants, but, on the other side of the coin, there are people that will say that winning a Triple Crown over this extended period and keeping a horse good for that long may be a tougher feat than having a horse good for 5 weeks. So, who knows? I would love to be going to Baltimore with a chance to fill it out.
Now, there's no school bus taking you over to Pinnell's on Saturday. The school bus only comes out in Louisville. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's tradition. And, should we be fortunate enough to, still be winning and going to Baltimore, we would have school buses there as well.
Now, since the Tiz the Law Triple Crown buzz has started, how much of a demand on your time has there been from the media?
Well, it's a lot different. Before Funnyside won the Derby, it was really, you and Matt Graves and Mike Kane up here in the Capital District that were focused on Funnyside. I mean, nobody else really paid an awful lot of attention to him, and that's why he paid $27 and change when he won the Kentucky Derby. In this case with Tiz, once he won in New York, the Champagne in October, he was on everybody's radar screens as, potentially one of the top 3-year-olds. And really, all the way through that, I've done a lot of, work with the press as I did with Funnyside. But now it's more, radio interviews, it's podcasts. There's no other sports. There's a lot of airtime to fill out. So horse racing has been it, and I've done an awful lot more than I ever did before.
Are you a superstitious guy? Do you have superstitions on race day?
No, just hoping that I don't get a call from Barkley that something has happened, that it's not going to be able to be in a race.
Just must be a very exciting time, for everyone involved, and I'm sure you're really excited for all your partners.
Oh, that's great. I've got, a whole mixed bag really in this group of 35 people. I've got some people, it's their first horse with Sackatoga, or their first horse at all. I've got others that have been in Sackatoga for many, many horses. Only Lou Titterton is a holdover to the Funnyside days. But I have partners that have been, with us, 8, 10, 12 years. And, we've had a lot of fun. Been to a lot of races, got quite a few winner circle pictures, but winning a grade 1 race like we did in the Champagne is something that any owner, no matter where they are in the game, that's a big deal. And most owners that participate in racing never get that opportunity. And now, even though we weren't there for the second one with the Florida Derby, we've got a dual grade 1 winner, and that's pretty impressive.
All I can say, Jack, is I wish you luck with Tiz the Law, and hopefully that you get to see him run sometime this year, hopefully in the Travers. And you know, he's a horse that could be a very exciting horse for the rest of the year. And I think that's what the sport would love to see and maybe needs.
Well, that's what we're hoping. And I just read, I guess this morning or yesterday, that no New York bred has won that race, the Belmont Stakes, in 130 years. So, you know, if that's true, and I guess it probably is, I'd love to break that spell. As you know, we only buy and race New York breds, and we really try to do everything that we can to promote the New York bred product. So hopefully this will be another step forward.
You just put more pressure on yourself.
Why not?
Well, Jack, again, thanks for your time, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you on Saturday.
I'm sure you will. Happy
Thanks,
to do
Jack.
it. Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.